This is Life Lessons Lounge, and I'm Igina Gerazi. Here, we explore diverse life stories and the wisdom they hold. Let's delve into the stories that shape us, teach us, and connect us all. Welcome to the 5th episode of the Life Lessons Lounge. Today, my guest is Burcu Arsoy. And Burcu is Turkish and has lived in many different places, moved around for her education or her different jobs. And by profession, she's a graphic designer, and she has explored so much as well in baking and pastry and has followed that passion. So we talk about all these kind of explorations, and at the bottom of it, that is creativity, and as well as her willingness to explore, to learn, and to grow. And not only that, but it's also how is it to live in so many different countries? What is home to her? So listen to it because it's such a genuine story of exploration, curiosity, growth, and above all, connection to self and being true to oneself. Thank you very much for listening, and remember to subscribe. I actually wanted to ask you about when did you leave Turkey initially, and how was that journey from leaving Turkey, and when did you initially start your traveling?
I think the first time I got out of the country was when I was in university. I went to Italy because I used to speak Italian as well. Now there are only small words and phrases that are still lingering with me. I forgot most of it, but I would like to pick up again. So I went to a language course in Florence for a month. That was my first trip that I did on my own, just by myself. Decided to go to Europe in a country that I hadn't been before, take a step out of my comfort zone. And it went really great, I must say. It was summer, of course, and I made friends in that language course. It was very intensive, but I also enjoyed the city so much. And then when I got back, I had 2 more years to finish school. And also, that's the time that I had decided that I wanted to do masters in a different area.
What were you studying?
I was studying computer engineering.
Oh, I
That's
didn't know
another
that.
outcome of the educational system in Turkey and how I happened to be in that path throughout. Yes, and after I made the choice with a nationwide exam scoring super high, and studying engineering for 2 years, I started taking some courses from the fine arts faculty because I had been always interested in art and I had been talented, I think. And even though some of the teachers pushed my parents to go, explore that area, they were like, no, 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 she would suffer if she would become an artist. No way that we're going to encourage her to do that. And so until that time, I didn't really have that much chance to explore that area. And when I started taking courses from fine arts, including digital media, drawing, pottery, ceramics, I discovered that I want to do that more. And I didn't want to become an engineer. That was very clear after I also had my summer internships as an engineer. And in the meantime, I was taking painting courses on the weekends on my own, going to the city from the campus and working with an artist. And I really, really enjoyed that process. And then I decided I want to do something related with art. And then I started taking some courses from graphic design. And eventually, when I was in my third year, I decided to have master's in graphic design. And I decided it would be better if I go to the US or to Europe to have the master's, to have some kind of a bigger leap, and to kind of compensate all the years that I have lost while studying engineering, let's say. It's not a loss. I now think about it differently, but back then it seemed like such a loss for me.
Yeah.
But anyhow, that's how I had applied to different schools in Europe and in the US. I also needed a scholarship to be able to study abroad. and there were only limited number of schools who could give scholarships to international people who are outside of EU. That was another drawback, of course. But luckily, I got accepted by Boston University, and we're talking about 2007.
Mm.
And I went there. That was really the big first move that I made. 2007, I went to Boston. I had stayed there for 2 years.
Mm.
I wanted to stay more, but it was the financial crisis in the whole world again, 2008, 2009
True.
crisis.
True.
I couldn't stay after the graduation. I had to go back to Turkey, but things were the same.
But Bushu, how was that experience of being abroad and being away from home and on your own?
I thought it was very liberating, but scary at the same time. Because, Turkish culture is a culture that you really depend on others.
Mm.
You live within the community, your circle of friends and family, and whenever you need help, there are always people available to help you. You don't even have to ask. They're always there for you to take care of things, when you have a problem. It could be something quite practical, like carrying stuff, carrying your bed, or when you're sick, buying some things for you. So going to a country that I didn't know anyone from, it was quite challenging. And it was the first time that I had realized, okay, I have to take care of this problem just by myself. I'm on my own. And I remember because Boston is well known with the mice situation, like New York. The buildings are quite old, and it's quite common in the old buildings. There can be a couple of mice or rats in the
No way.
apartment.
I could
In our
not
case,
believe that.
it was a small mouse. But yeah, even in that case, in Turkey, you're like, especially as a woman, you would be like, I'm not going to touch anything. You
Yeah,
can
call
just
someone.
set the trap, and there are people who could help you with that. You don't have to deal with that situation on your own. And in this case, I had two flatmates, and they were male. But then they didn't do anything because they weren't bothered about the problem as much as I did. So I had to go to a hardware store myself, talk to the people there, find the best looking solution, less cruel one in a way. And then I had to set up everything myself and take care of that, situation by myself. And this is just a small example. And of course, a lot has happened during those 2 years I had stayed there. I had, of course, lots of problems and everything. And I think those were the years that I became more self sufficient and resilient. And it was very challenging in the beginning, to be honest.
Mhm. But it also sounds to me like it was like a rite of initiation to adulthood, independence, being on your own. I also remember when I left Albania for the first time, because you're so used to that family, structure and umbrella, that when you go away, then you realize, hey, actually, who's me without all of that? And that's very interesting.
Yeah, and I remember that was a huge difference because even when I was studying in university, I studied in a different city than my parents lived, and I was staying in a dormitory. And during the summer holidays, we had to um, leave the dormitories and the room so that they could clean up and make it ready for the next term. And you have all the stuff that you have to carry back home, right? And every time my parents were coming and picking me up and my belongings, I also had my brother supporting me. And all of a sudden, just imagine going to the different part of the world, start living on your own and not knowing anyone. It's like you said, a big step to the adulthood, which maybe you were not prepared for. You have this idea, oh, I want to live on my own. I want to have my life and make my decisions. Yes, that's all great, but that also comes with the other part.
Yes, it's like adulthood on steroids. You get them.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then, so you moved then to back to Turkey, and what happened then?
I had a cultural shock reverse.
Oh yeah.
And I didn't think that I was going to have that, to be honest.
Mm.
Even though I wanted to stay in the US and work there and I couldn't, I didn't think it was going to be that different, because I think that was the first time I realized something has shifted in me. And I found a job as a graphic designer. I started working in that job, but then I found out that I was in depression. Yeah, I didn't know back then, but I was in deep depression because I couldn't adapt back to my own culture in a way, and I wasn't happy. And from the first year onwards, I started looking for jobs in the UK and in Europe again, and try to find a way to get out again, because that was the life that I experienced and wanted to continue. And it felt so weird because it came with the guilt. I was close to my family and friends, yet I wanted to leave again. It's such a struggle internally because you feel guilty in a way that, why do you want to leave? Now you're back with them, right? And then it's hard to admit the fact that now you have become a different person.
Mm,
You're not the same as before.
that's so true. So, and then you moved again. How long did that take for you to move
Hmm.
out of Turkey again?
So it took me, I think, 5 years.
Mm,
Yeah. I attempted quite a lot in between, but luckily I was employed by a design agency who had other studios in Europe. So I was traveling for projects temporarily, not permanently. Um, and during those years, I think it was 2014, I was sent to Stockholm office to take part in a project. And I really liked the city because I came to Stockholm when it was spring, summer, not winter. So it made a difference. That's how they convince people to come to the
exactly.
city. Yeah. And I really liked people. And that's when I got back to Istanbul, I told them that I wanted to relocate for good to the
Mm,
Stockholm office. And they said, no, 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 we cannot lose you. We have so many projects here. You're very senior, and no way, we're not going to let you do that. And then I said to myself, well, okay, that's your choice. I can find another way to move then. I started applying for jobs again in Sweden, but also in Denmark, thinking that Denmark could be very similar to Sweden and sounds as good, And back then, there were a lot of PR talking about how happy Danish people are. It's the best country to live on earth and everything. I was so sold to that. I started applying for jobs in the competitors in other design agencies, and I got a job in Copenhagen, and that's also where we met, you and I.
yes.
So I'm really grateful for those years because I met so many great people and I made so many great friends.
Hmm. When was that? Do you remember?
I moved to Denmark 2015.
Ah, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. And we met at Toastmasters the first time. Yeah.
Yes. I
Good.
was trying to make friends and joining all the activities that I could. I'm not a sports type of person, so my options were limited. And yeah, back then I thought to myself, oh, maybe I can try public speaking. I can improve and leadership. That sounds super nice. And then, yes, luckily that club and the group of people were super nice. So I was lucky.
Yeah. Now the club in Denmark, it's really really nice. That specific club in Copenhagen. It's
Mm.
I also have very very fond memories of that. Good, but you didn't stay for long in Denmark, and then you left us.
I mean, what is long? Yeah, I stayed almost 3 years.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it feels short, but yes, compared to my 17 years. Yes.
True. It's not as long as you stayed. That's true. I stayed only 3 years. I think, each experience is very individual.
Mm,
And I am telling myself maybe the timing wasn't right or the context wasn't right because I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy with so many things. I wasn't happy with my job. I wasn't happy about the culture overall. Um, and then I had decided to move to the UK, thinking that it was, it's more international. And of course, no one had any idea about the uh, upcoming Brexit back then, still being part of Europe. And I started applying for jobs. But then one day, someone pinged me on LinkedIn, suggesting that I should apply to a company that's in Stockholm. And I was like, interesting. That's where it all started, coming to Stockholm for a project and then wanting to move to the Nordics. And now, is it like a full circle again? I'm like, no, I want to go away from Scandinavia. I
Because
want to
Denmark has
experience
a very
international.
nice taste.
Yes.
No.
But then, I mean, it happened. I found myself in Stockholm, joining that company, even though it was the only company that I was talking to at that moment. It felt right. And I said, well, okay, maybe this time I should give Stockholm a chance. And it's been 5 years, more than 5 years since I moved.
So how do you feel there?
I feel good. I mean, I can call, I think, Stockholm home. Um, it's unlucky that you're asking this question in the middle of winter, Migena. if you if you had asked this question in summer, I would have said, "Oh, it's been great, amazing."
It's amazing that there are two or three answers depending on the weather in the
Mhm.
Nordics. It's not on
Yeah,
anything else weather-wise.
exactly, exactly, and I think it always creates the small talk. Always talking about weather is the perfect small talk with anyone, really.
Well, I think it's also the most boring small talk because it doesn't change much. And it's like, yeah, rain again. Yes. Cold today. Yes.
Always cloudy and gray. Yeah, we are so depressed. So that conversation doesn't last long. Like you're right. It ends in an awkward
If you
way.
have eye contact with anyone, but that's another story.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm still very different in terms of culture, Swedish culture. But I mean, I think you can also agree with that. Wherever you go, there are always pros and cons. There isn't an utopia, an ideal place to live, but you choose your battles in a way,
Mm.
and how you're going to compensate that. I mean, so far, I think it's good. When people ask if I'm planning to stay long, um, I say, well, I really cannot see myself staying here for long or until retirement. There are warmer, sunnier countries on earth, and maybe a bit of a more social culture as well. I think that's the part that I'm missing the most, because when the sun is shining, my whole mood changes, and then I feel like myself again. I don't like my version in this gray, long, dark winter seasons. I become like a very, I don't know, unbearable person.
You're not alone, my dear. That I'm
Mm.
absolutely sure. Those long winters are not as much fun. But at least
No.
there is the culture. That's what I really enjoy in Denmark. It's this hygge culture, the coziness that even though the winters are that long, you create something
Mm.
cozy and wonderful, and the connection, in terms of friends and family. It's very nice during that time because you're inside and warm. And in the southern countries, it's colder inside than outside. That's what I've experienced.
Really?
So I miss some aspects of Danish winters.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. I mean, people might feel the need to connect more during the long winter months. But again, I mean, you have to be in a situation that would be considered as lucky, right? If you don't have that many friends, and most people, most international people, they don't have family here either. And if you don't have your friends, and there are lots of now expat group on Facebook asking, people are asking to meet others just to become friends with because they're suffering. And it's the sad part of the culture, because you cannot really become friends with locals that easily, who have already established group of friends and maybe don't think that they can connect with someone coming from a completely different country. So it is very challenging in a way. Even though there is a Hugo culture in Denmark, and there is also equivalent in Sweden, I think that culture mostly applies to local people, not so much for internationals. That's what I think.
How do you do driving in Stockholm?
Hmm. What I have been doing, I think I have created opportunities that I could meet internationals in different platforms. I didn't continue Toastmasters here, but I signed up for acting courses, English, um, because, well, I'm ashamed to say that, but I cannot speak Swedish. I have been quite lazy about that. I'm now working for an international company, which didn't create me any reasons or motivation to learn Swedish, but that's another story. So I signed up for English acting courses that I met some, nice group of people that I'm still friends with, some of them. That was one thing. And then I, I think working for an international company, even though they hinder your chances of learning the language, they also bring this opportunity of like-minded international people who are also looking for friends, right? They're in a very similar situation to yours, and they're more open to meet you outside of work, hang out, go to afterworks and whatnot. I've switched companies quite a lot, and I have met so many great people along the way. But also, what they say, you have to go somewhere sunny during the winter months when you live in Denmark or Sweden. I have only done it once, um, but I think it really helps. There are more and more people doing it.
Mm.
And sometimes I go and visit my family in Turkey. That also helps. I try to travel for the weekends to some places as well because I like exploring new places and new experiences. But now I have a dog, so I cannot be super spontaneous about my weekend travels. That I have to arrange someone to look after her and plan for it a bit more in advance. So that part is a bit limited. But maybe, I mean, speaking of my dog, I think she has changed my life in such a positive way.
Mm.
And now, during winter months, we cuddle on the couch, and there's always a routine, and there is some kind of um, living being that I have to take care of. So I cannot be so selfish, or I cannot just, be so depressive because there is something who needs my attention and care. Um, and I have to be fair to her as well. And then she pushes me to go for walks every day. I think that also helps
That's
because it's not a
good.
choice. Yeah, you have to go out, and I think that's really helping. Even though going out in the morning, like 6:30 a.m. when it is so dark and snowy outside, no one wants to do that. But then the first couple of minutes after I just managed to get out of the apartment, it changes also my mood. It really helps to get some fresh air, some movement in the body. I'm not suggesting for everyone to get a dog. It's a huge responsibility, but I think it helps.
Mm. Oh, definitely. The walks really help. What's your dog's name?
Her name is Cannoli, coming from the Italian pastry.
Oh, jumping to the pastry. That's also a lovely story that I would love to hear
Mm,
because
yeah, I
I
love
know how
pastries.
passionate you are about that.
I love eating them. I love making them. Of course, I have some favorites from different countries, pastry wise. But yeah, I had made a decision last year to take a bit more of a serious step to pursue that passion, to see where it could lead me, without still losing I think the comfort of having a job and the security and whatnot. So luckily, the company that I'm working at, they are supporting people to take study leave. And it doesn't have to be related with the area that we work in. It doesn't have to be related with our job, which is great. And it doesn't have to be academic. It can be anything, up to 2 years. So I found an intensive pastry and bread course in France because I thought, okay, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it all the way in, and I have to go to France and learn how to make croissants and such.
All the way in. That's good.
All the way in.
From
Yeah,
the best of
yeah,
the best.
sometimes I'm like that in life and make my life more difficult. It's either like black or white. And I don't like that about me, but sometimes it helps. Either you have to do it all the way in or not. There
I
is
like
no
that.
kind of lagom, is in Swedish, lagom way of doing things. I mean, it's not always good, but yeah, sometimes it's good to be like that. So I did some research. I also knew that I didn't want to go to Paris, so big, so chaotic, so difficult. And then I thought of the idea, oh, what about Bordeaux? I like wine. And people say that Bordeaux is a very nice city, and I found the school there. Timing wise, it also fit perfectly to my plans. 2 months of intensive course, 5 days a week, 7, 8 hours in the lab, always baking, preparing stuff, multiple recipes, cleaning afterwards. And it was so exhausting. And it was a completely different environment than my day job, which I happened to sit in front of a screen and work and, talk to people. In the school, I was always on my feet. My legs were always super tired at the end of the day. And the next day, it was difficult for my body to adapt to that change of, normally I'm very fatigued in terms of mental workload. And now when I'm talking to you, it has been a long week. I can still feel that my brain is tired, but my body isn't. But in the school, in the pastry school, it was the other way around. My body was super tired, but my mental abilities were super sharp.
Hmm.
And I don't know which way is preferable. I think it should be a balance, but it was such a shift for me to experience. And of course, I love the training. I am still trying to pursue that. I also had an internship after the school.
Bonjour.
But
So, what do you love about pastries?
I like both baking and cooking, and this is different for other people because you know what they say baking is very scientific and you have to stick to the recipes. You cannot improvise that much. It doesn't have room for improvisation because you have to stick to the percentages and whatnot. And many people that I talk to, they prefer cooking because they feel like they have more creative freedom in cooking and they can improvise. I like both. Maybe it does tell something for me because I like both in different contexts. I like improvisation. I like being creative, but I also like being so analytical and kind of experimental in a way. You can still have some creative freedom and experiment in baking, even though you know that there's a high chance of failure. I also like, I think what I could say when you are making something complicated, a very complicated cake, different layers, different timings, um, you really feel in the flow if you like that process.
Mm.
Your brain always works, okay, what is it that I'm going to do next? How I can create my, own version of it? Can I add a personal touch into this? How much of creative freedom I can have? Can I make this recipe vegan? Can I not? Can it be gluten free? Even those kind of calculations and the thoughts make you, I think, wear your scientific hat in a way. And that's the aspect I like. Of course, I like tasting them. I also like when it fails, it's also another process. You still enjoy thinking about why it failed, right?
Mm.
What went wrong in the process. And of course, we had so many failures in school. Even with the teachers supervising us, things can go wrong.
Yeah, but I bet it's a very rewarding experience.
It is, yes. And after coming back, I had thought, okay, do I want to do another training related with baking or cooking? Maybe yes, because 2 months was just like a teaser and it didn't feel enough. And it's something that I would like to do more of, but maybe timing wise, not this year, but maybe in the future when I know more how I want to proceed in this path.
Mm.
Right now, I'm exploring it by doing home baking. I started an Instagram account. I am taking orders, not super much. I'm not really investing that much in marketing because I also don't have that much time right now. But I signed up for a spring market at the end of March, for example, that is a bit stressful right now, and I'm panicking inside. I have to plan, I have to calculate the costs and try to, make it even in the end of the day. But I also don't know how many people are going to show up and whether how many of them are going to buy or not, what kind of things they would be interested in.
Mm.
It's such a risk. I know, but it's a small risk. I mean, no one is going to die after 2 days. I hope.
No, but it's amazing that you take those risks and that you try, you go for your passion. And I'm curious as well, how has your graphic design background as well, has it supported you or helped you in some way with the baking and the pastries?
That's a good question. I think it does, especially I think having this aesthetic eye helps, because when you are decorating something or designing something for how it should look, you can always benefit from that visual side. And I mean, sometimes most people struggle with, they don't have that kind of visual eye and they don't know how to make it look better when they're plating something or decorating. Because when let's see that I've seen a recipe online and there's a certain decoration of that cake, I can easily think it in a different way. I can make it more complex, I can make it more simple, I can totally experiment with it. I think I really benefit from that. I also enjoy, because graphic design means that you're very detail oriented. You have to work with the pixels and all the layouts and aligning things and being very meticulous about the details. I think with some pastries, you have to be that detail oriented, and that's something that I like. And you have to be very precise in terms of timing as well. If you're working with chocolate, for example, that's another dimension to the equation, the time, because it has to be the perfect temperature depending on what you want to do with the chocolate. It's so difficult to hit that temperature frame and what you want to do. That was a learning for everybody, even though, the end result might look better. You have to be super good at what you do. And it doesn't matter if you're having a good visual eye or not, you also have to be super good at understanding how chocolate works and being experienced in that. So
Oh, I
to
got it.
some extent, yes, graphic design helps me. I think when I make cakes, people love how they look as well as how they taste. But you also, I think, you have a tendency to be more self-critical when you have that visual eye. You know that you can do better, and then maybe you go into a perfectionist path that doesn't always help. When you have to get that cake out of the door and deliver, you cannot just work with it for days.
Oh, yeah, but I know how talented and how creative you are when it comes to everything visual. Like I follow the Instagram account. Well, you have designed my website, you have done my logo, and I'm so happy with all of it because it's simple, it's beautiful, it's so me. So it's also understanding the person. You're so good at that, and I
Mhm.
love it. I really, really love it.
Thank you. I mean, I love hearing that. And I think one thing that because right now I'm taking custom orders. There isn't like a website you can order, I want this cake, I want this. Because what I like about this process is that I get to talk to the person who is asking me to bake a birthday cake for them. I want to understand what flavors they like, what kind of requirements they have, because it can be totally custom made for them. Right? If they are asking for a vegan cake, yes, sure. Okay, what kind of flavors do you like? Do you like this? Do you like that? Do you like this shape? How about this style? How about that style? I really like, you know, making something special for that person only, and they feel extra special on their special day. So I think that I enjoy that process as well, understanding what they like the most and how I can help them have the best cake in their life.
Oh, that's so pretty. Very lovely. So how does it all fit together in a way? Because I can see, like creativity.
Mhm.
It feels like that's at the basis of everything that you do, right? It feels like that's your number one inspiration. So what else? What has this exploration given to you?
It's interesting you ask the same question I'm asking to myself. How does it all fit together. But then I ask another question: do they have to fit all together? Can they be different, separate things that can coexist? And I'm more now into this thinking, or I try to encourage myself to think that way. They don't have to fit together. It's okay to have different pieces in my life that gives me different kind of fulfillment, so that I don't feel bored doing one thing. And by saying that, I don't mean that I have to earn an income from everything I do. I think I need to create time for the things that I want to do that gives me joy and fulfillment. Um, I don't have to do it as a job or professionally. That's what I'm saying. And I don't have to, I think, force myself to make it fit together or find this super interesting thing that would bring all the pieces together. Maybe they're just meant to be separate.
Yeah,
That's what I
that's what I
think.
meant with the exploration. It's like, what is it giving you? And it feels, definitely, it feels like it's fulfilling different parts of you
Yeah.
as well. That's beautiful. How is it to have had all these experiences? So having lived in so many different countries, and when you go back to your own country in a way, how does it feel to be back? And do you find yourself at home there?
Hmm. That's a very big question. I feel like because this is something that I've been reading a lot on. Because every time that I go visit Turkey, um, there are parts that make me feel I'm home. And just to give some concrete examples, it's such a relief to strike a conversation with anyone and everyone so easily and seamlessly, because it's that kind of culture. You can just talk to a stranger on public transport and it's not weird or creepy. You can just have a small talk with anyone. And sometimes it feels so easy and so natural. That's something that I miss. But on, like, in other ways, every time that I go there, I see things are shifting very rapidly, not in a good way, due to economical situation, political situation, and whatnot. And that's also very saddening, if you ask me, because for people living there, they don't realize those changes, when it happens, slowly but every day. But when I go there in every couple of months, the change is more apparent. And it was something that my cousin asked the last time I was there. She was asking, in my visit that time, what I have observed, what had changed, in my opinion, in my view, compared to the previous times. So it's an interesting question. I thought, because it's more obvious, I think, for people like us. And I'm thinking it's also maybe difficult to feel at home anywhere I go now, because I have lived in different countries, and maybe I should give up on the idea of feeling at home in anywhere. I think that's another thing that I'm trying to convince myself. I need to create home inside me or outside in my own circle, because no other country can feel like home anymore, because I have changed so much. And sometimes, you can call it existential crisis. Sometimes I question myself, okay, who am I? What do I want? Um, and they're big questions.
Yes, and I
But I,
relate so much to that. I completely relate to what you just shared.
yeah, because you have also lived in so many different places. Do you call Albania home, or do you call Denmark home?
It's exactly as you said it. It's because every time I go to Albania, it's a different place. I am a different person. And as much as the familiarity is there every time, right? And also, as you said, the languages, the way you connect to people, it goes very quickly into some patterns which are very familiar. And then still, I see things with different eyes now. It's because I can see the differences, and I can see as well the good and the bad of the mindset, of the mentality, of the culture. Uh, so it's very difficult to relate to that part, or at least because I can see it, and I've worked a lot getting away from that. So it's exactly as you said. It's I find it very difficult to be home in any country, and at the same time I think even if I'm an hour in a country, I can feel home. It's that sense of I'm home anywhere I am, uh,
Mm.
which has taken me a lot to work on. But I have, even if I'm somewhere, for a night, I try to, okay, this is my place for the night. So whatever is needed, to make it a little bit homey.
Yeah, I feel the same way too. When I go explore a new city, let's say it doesn't feel so strange as it used to. Somehow I think I can adapt faster. Like a couple of hours just walking around and, orienting yourself a little bit for the next day. I think we have become more adaptable in any situation. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. If they put us in a horrible place, does it mean
No,
that we would adapt very soon?
no, but if you see it a little bit of in a bigger perspective, right? Like what has all this taught us? And for me, it's a very much the thing that we're all humans, at the bottom of it, at the essence, we're all humans. Like, of course, we have different conditionings, different cultures, but if we relate on a human level, we're humans. If you see some of the lessons when it comes to this journey for yourself, what are some that you would like to share?
I think there are things that I wish I had done earlier, but I didn't have the right conditions or circumstances. So I'm almost 40 years old, and when you think about 40 years old people, maybe the previous generation, um, they wouldn't do the things that we are doing right now. Maybe they would feel so scared, or uncomfortable to push themselves out of the comfort zone. I think it's not too late to do things you want in life, and I am thinking still I have so many more years that I'm going to live and enjoy and explore different things, even though the expectation from the society is somehow for us to settle down and do one thing. It's like, no, I don't want to do one job for the rest of my life. I want to do different things. I want to meet different people. I want to see different places, um, and I want to learn a lot more still in different areas in life. So I'm like, it's difficult to find time for all of that because, as you know, when you're aging, you also have to plan for the far future.
Come on, aging at 40.
But it is so different. I mean, when I talk to a 20-year-old now, I see that. I feel really old when I talk to younger generation. I think that makes me realize that I'm getting old. Not that when I look at the mirror, it's just that when I talk to younger people, it's like, oh, okay, they are very different. But yeah, nothing is too late for us either. And I think, um, and some of the things I would say they can just take the step in that direction. They don't have to have everything planned out, because when I took the study leave, some people asked me what my plan was, if I wanted to switch careers or open my own place, and what's going to happen after the school, right? 2 months. And I told them I don't have any plan. For the first time in my life, I am leaving myself free. And I'm just going to see where it's going to lead me. And I'm not going to, pressure myself to have a plan or next step. I will take it just step by step and see where it goes. And that's a very liberating thing, I think. People shouldn't create the pressure on themselves. Life is full of stress, anyways. And it's okay to not know all the answers or what's going to happen next, what's going to come next. And, people asked me if I was planning to go back to my job. And I said, I don't know. I might go back. I might not go back. I don't know. But the only way to know is to leave and see how it's going to go. And I went back because I thought that the timing wasn't right for me to take another step. I explored things. I made a decision. No, this is not what I want. This is not the right timing for me. So I'm going to keep exploring while I can still make a living on my own. And I wasn't ready to take a bigger step in life. And that's okay. I think the most important thing is know your limits, how much you can stretch, how much you can take risks. I know as a person, I'm not a big risk taker.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wish I was.
Well, it doesn't sound like that to me. To me, it sounds a person who is very connected to themselves, and also who actually really has a sense of uh, exploration and play and learning and growth and stretching yourself. So I think that's getting out of your comfort zone and risking and going for things that you like. So I hope you can
No.
see that and acknowledge that.
Thank you. Thank you. Actually, some people from work, they told me the same thing because, when you look at some careers, they start in one place, they work for 20, 30 years, and they haven't done anything except for that one job or working for one company. And some of the people actually told me how courageous I was and how much they admired when I was thinking, this is not a huge risk I'm taking. This is something everyone can do. But no, you're right. Not this is not something everyone does. So
No,
I
and
think we should also give ourselves some credit,
exactly,
right?
exactly.
Okay. Yes, that's another lesson.
Good. I remember when I first saw it on Instagram, you were posting about the course in Bordeaux, and I was like, "Wow, that's really amazing!" That and then my brain went like, "Oh, has she quit job? So is she going full time there?" In terms of wanting to put things into boxes, and
Yeah.
I love how you're breaking in a way outside of those boxes, and it's like, no, I'm just taking this leave, doing this for fun, and also I think it's an assumption that I create. It's also probably it has helped you so much with your creativity when it comes to the designing, the graphic designing, because it's like it's a different way of how you feed your creativity as well, right?
Mm-hmm. It is. And I think changing your context completely and doing something, working in the kitchen is very different than doing an office job. But then there are also commonalities because in school, in the pastry school, you still have to work as a team. So we were put as in duos, and sometimes some recipes required one person to do one thing, whereas the other one was doing another part of it. And you have to communicate very clearly. You have to share responsibilities. You have to be open. It's a true teamwork, right? There's also that aspect that you are not an individual. Or when I was doing the internship, it's again the same. You have to collaborate with other people and try to find a way that would make the whole system work perfectly. You're not individual or making your decisions, even though it might seem so in a kitchen. It's not like that. Um, and now we also got to learn a lot about different teaching styles for the teachers because I didn't have that idea. I thought that, okay, they would all teach the same, right? For the same recipe, even. No, they had different styles. They have different techniques. They prefer to do some sort of cream. And it is so interesting to see also these different personal styles, how they come through in their teaching experience. And then also it gives a lot of insight about myself, which approach that I like the most and which approach that I prefer the most. And how can I be that person? There's a lot of learning in observing just others and how they do it, right? So you can take those learnings with you in any area that you work in, not necessarily has to be with the kitchen, but anything you get to do with. So yeah, I think the most important thing is when people decide to do different things, um, they would bring that curiosity with them and observation and try to take the core of what they are learning, not necessarily have the pressure to apply it to the next thing they do, but whatever you can take from that experience, you have the power to find the area that you can make it work and apply. And I think that comes with I'm not going to say age. I'm not going to sound like an old person. That comes with experience and wisdom.
The maturity.
Yes.
Good. So what's next? What now?
What now? I don't know, to be honest. Um, Well, there are lots of things, of course, that I'm waiting for as milestones. I am waiting for an answer for my citizenship application. That's something is pending, and I think that would give me more freedom, in the sense that I can be more free to make a decision, to do whatever I want. And if I want to move, I wouldn't worry about the work permits and everything. I think it's so liberating, especially for people who are not from EU. They could relate to this. It has been such a big stress factor in our lives,
I know, I relate
but now
very
I'm
much
getting
to
there.
that.
Yeah, and then, well, let's see. Like I said, I have the spring market coming up, which is another experiment. And I'm also meeting a lot of people, who support my journey, who become my customers. And of course, I take a lot of baked goods to work, and I always collect feedback, from them. They're super happy to contribute to my sidekick.
I wish I
Yeah.
were there. I would gladly contribute.
I wish you were here too. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what would be next, to be honest. Like I said, I think after COVID, especially, I'm trying to embrace a different mindset, that I also have to live this life. It's not always achieving goals and the milestones. It's also something we have to live and enjoy. And it's already too, I think, stressful for so many people. Day in, day out in our jobs, we don't really get to feel we are living every day. So I try to create more space, to do things that would make me feel, yes, I'm living and I'm feeling things.
I
So I
love that.
think that's the next part. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. And I wish you all the best in
Thanks.
living life and fulfilling your purpose, having that freedom and that joy and that, everything that you would love to create in this life. So thank you very much for sharing your wisdom, for sharing your stories and the lessons that you've learned.
My pleasure. It was so nice to talk to you, Migena.
Thank you for being with us in the Life Lessons Lounge. Remember, every story has its wisdom. Join us next time for more insights and inspiration. Until then, keep learning, keep growing, and keep sharing your own story.